Well, welcome to another episode of Light Vision Art Q&A. I am your humble host, Alfonso Ashworth. Of course, we broadcast live every Saturday mornings from 10 to 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. So if you are an early bird, or if you like to get up early and get you a cup of coffee, or maybe get up and get you your favorite breakfast, and you can sit around and listen to our topic. We got a great topic for you today. I'm not sure my panel, they may chime in. I know one of my panelists is going to be out today, Claudia Richardson. She's been with the show ever since we started, and she's very faithful in what she does on the show. She always brings a bit of humor to the show, and she also is someone who's dedicated to the craft. And I see that we do have a viewer that's chiming in. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can call in at this number here on the screen. You can call in at 615-547-3355. That will get you on air, that you can hear. Of course, if you got anything that you want to talk about, or you can also email me at lightvisionart@gmail.com if you got a question or making a comment that you want to share with others. But by all means, be a part of the show. We're going to be talking about the proliferation of photographers. It's almost like it's a mass movement of photographers today that are going into the photography business. Now, let's not confuse the business with just being your everyday average run of the mill person who just likes to take pictures. You like to share your pictures with your family members, Facebook friends, Twitter friends, Pinterest, and all these type of social media. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about today is the proliferation of how many photographers are going into the business of photography. So if you got something that you want to add to that or talk about, we'd be glad to get you on air. Before we get started, let's do just a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, you do know that you're listening to and looking at Light Vision Art Q&A, The Educated Eye. Of course, we broadcast Saturday mornings from 10 to 11, live broadcast. You can catch the replay of this show. You can go back to our archives. You can look at previous shows, go to our YouTube page, check out our shows there. There's plenty of shows that we've done over the past few months and years, really. And also, catch us in the dark room. You see this up, it says dark room in use. We talk about photography in an in-depth sort of way. And one of the things we like to talk about is the dark room. And that could be in respects to Photoshop, Corel Draw, or just if you know and familiar with the darkroom as it was in the earlier days of photography. And you can also catch me on Line Chasers Radio with Lonnie Poindexter. I am his guest host. A matter of fact, I guest host for Lonnie yesterday on his radio program that's broadcast throughout the nation. You can find me there. We talk about urban issues. We talk about politics. We talk about religion. But find us at urbanfamilytalk.com. We're on there from 10 to 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, broadcast live every day. So find me there. But of course, as always, find me in the Light Vision Art classroom. I teach a course. We've been teaching for years, but we teach a photography course called The Educated Eye. You can get in that class. It's a 16-week class. As you can see, it comes with workbook. It comes with the material. You're in the classroom environment. And by all means, if you cannot get in the classroom, we can do private classes for you. So don't feel left out. We do 4-hour classes. We do over-the-counter classes, and I will sit down with you and help you with the box with the hole in it. And of course, anytime that you see me, you may see me in the classroom, you may see me on this show, or you may hear me on the radio. But about whatever you do, make sure that you contact me and get informed of what's happening with that box. And I would be remiss if I did not mention lenses. WeBeLenses.com. We highly recommend that you use WeBe Lenses if you need good lenses at a reasonable rate. You can rent from WeBeLenses.com, and they will get you your Canon lenses fast and reasonable. So, of course, let's get into what we're going to talk about. Right at this moment, what I'm noticing, the show is called 10,000 Photographers on the Head of a Pin. Of course, that's a play on words concerning fitting a massive amount of people on one area. For example, I get a lot of feedback from photographers who have worked in the industry for a very long time. By the way, many of them have decided to downscale or even leave the industry because of the mass amount of people who are coming and going. Prices are unstable. It's hard to be competitive. The life expectancy of your average photography in the business environment is about 2 to 5 years, maybe in some cases less than that. Many of them are finding it very hard to keep clients. Clients are, jumping from one photographer to another because of the rates. The rates are unstable. You have instability in the cost. For example, you may go to one photographer that's offering a package or a package deal or a mini session or whatever whatever they're doing to market their wares. They may be having one rate that's way off scale. I mean, I'm hearing rates where people are charging, for a 1 hour session, they're charging $300, for a CD or a DVD. No service afterwards. You pretty much get the product, you go about your ways, then they call you back when they're ready for you to do another session. But there's no service involved. There's no set down service. There's no consultation. You're not consulting with the clients. You're just basically fishing for whatever you can get. Many are not experienced. You cannot replace experience with information. Some people think because they have a lot of information at their disposal that equates to experience. What I'm finding, many photographers just don't have that working experience in that area, and they're not willing to take the time to either get trained properly or get the education required or to even work under someone with that experience. So they're just out there, just really copycats. They'll see somebody else doing something and they'll try to mock that. So what happens, or what is happening, and by all means, call the show at 615-547-3355, and we'll get your question on air if you want to comment. But what happens is you have a small pond with too many fishermen and not enough fish. So in order for them to justify taking that weekend or that Saturday to take portraits, they multiplied their rate to try to make up for the lack of amount of clients. So one customer equals all day. Whereas in the years ago, you may have 20 or 30 clients on a Saturday for a portrait. And you would spend 15, 20 minutes with that client, getting their portrait. Then you would have someone help that client with their orders. They would come back and see their proofs. From there, they would place orders, maybe reschedule their next appointment. maybe in the, a 3 to 6 month period. If you have small children, you may have more than one family portrait during the season. If you have teenagers, you may have portraits for them as an individual. And now we have what they call senior portraits, which used to be something that would be part of your school package. And in some cases, is part and partial part of the school package, but the client then can buy extra time. They can go on their own private sessions. So parents are spending um, a boatload of money for less today. You don't really get the service that you need. There's really no after service that you get from the photographer. They just want to do as many as they can do uh, without having a studio. The investment cost of a studio is quite extensive. I have and operated studios. I've helped others who have had their studios, and the years have passed. And with the new cameras, with the smartphones, the tablets, with the internet, with being able to share over the internet, it's just made it more difficult for the photographer to keep profits, to get many profits. So most of them have closed their studios, and either they work on by sessions, when the weather is good or when the season is right, they will book sessions, and that's how they're trying to justify it. But they're just not making enough to do it full time. So you may have a parent that decides that they want to be a photographer. Well, I teach photography, and so a lot of the students I'm getting today, they have plans to become their own photographer. One of the things that I teach, especially parents, uh, you cannot be your child's photographer. That's like trying to be your child's doctor, or trying to be your child's lawyer, or trying to be, you don't want to try to become your child's full-time photographer. It's one of the most difficult things to do, and it's very frustrating. So even if you learn the skills, you still want to, you still should um, try to have a professional photographer to do your family portraits and weddings. And I'm hearing all sorts of nightmares with weddings. I mean, it's just crazy. Some of the things I'm hearing, that where people are allowing first time shooters to shoot their weddings, mainly because it's not going to cost them anything, or the photographer says, "Look, I'm just shooting because I need the experience." Would you let somebody work on your car in that circumstance? Or would you allow someone to work on, your appliances, or do some work on your house? Would you let a roofer with no experience put a roof on your house because they just need the experience? So that is a dangerous thing that's happening. Is a lot of photographers are calling, well, this is my first time, so I just need the experience. No, your experience is gained when you work for someone else. That's where you get to exercise. You get to make some mistakes that can be corrected. If you work with a professional, they're not going to put you out there and allow you to do something you're not ready to do. And you learn under the right tutelage, just like, going to school. Students go to school to learn from their teachers. And then once the teacher passes them to a next grade, then they're able to do more and qualified to do more work. Photography is no different. So we're talking about photography today, 10,000 photographers on the head of a pen. We welcome you to call in. And of course, we'd like to advertise for others and what we do. If you go to our websites, check out Wilson County Photography Guild. We meet. This is a great way for you to get some experience, by the way. We meet the first Monday of every month. Now, we do have months we don't meet depending on the season or what's happening, but for the most part, we meet on the first Monday of every month from 6:30 to about 8. And we gather at Mount Juliet. We go to Corner Pub in Mount Juliet. We're going to be there this Monday, this following Monday, this coming Monday, at the Corner Pub in Mount Juliet. If you come prepared to get you some food. We get together, we talk about photography, we share images, and then we discuss things that are happening in the photography world. It's a great way to meet other photographers and to meet people so that you can learn more and get more experience. If you would like to get in my classroom, one thing that we provide is the Light Vision Art, the Educated Eye. You can go to my website, go to lightvisionart.simdiff.com. That's .simdiff, SIMDIF, Light Vision Art. Go there, and there's lots of information available, videos. You can look at clips that I provide, information that I provide, and you can also learn how to sign up for the class if you go here to our classroom information, and that will get you signed up as well. I also like to promote Christopher E. Hamrick. He's one of my panelists. He's not on today, but go to Christopher E. Hamrick's website and check out some of his work. He's a very good photographer, and he's very knowledgeable in a lot of areas, and he can be as helpful as anyone that I know of. So check him out as well. But don't forget, Wilson County Photography Guild, Mondays, 6:30 p.m., Mount Juliet at the Corner Pub. Then we alternate between Mount Juliet and Lebanon. When we meet in Lebanon, we meet at Pantura's Restaurant on Main Street. So you can check us out there. And of course, we're talking today about 10,000 photographers on the head of a pen. I listen to a lot of customers. I listen to a lot of photographers. I talk to a lot of photographers. Most have a good heart. Most are wanting to be better. Most of them. Some are just looking to get the money. They treat photography like it's a yard sale or something. Come and get your stuff and blah blah blah. Leave. See you later. Most though have an idea about serving. They just don't really know how. They haven't had the experience. They haven't had the someone teach them properly. So most do it they do it backwards. They go buy, a fancy camera, a box with a hole in it that we call it. They will buy a fancy camera. And then they will set out trying to get clients through their Facebook page, or some kind of social media, or friends. They'll start shooting their friends and their family, and then they try to use that to garner more clients. If you happen to be in a certain community, you may get 10, 15 clients here and there. They overcharge. That's one of the big problems I'm having today. They are overcharging, and they're ruining a legitimate enterprise. There is no regulations on it whatsoever. There's no way to control what's really happening, whether it be in the fact that most of them are not providing a complete service, and there's no one to hold accountable. Most people look at photography in a way that if you mess up someone's wedding, so what? It's not my fault. My computer broke down, or my software didn't work right, or there's always some excuse. And I hear nightmares from wedding clients, parents and family members who had someone photograph a wedding, and it's 6 months and they still have not received their proofs. 6 months after a wedding, they still have not received the proofs. And then when they get the proofs, they're horrible, horrible lit, the lighting, exposures, poor composition. They forget to shoot certain images. They didn't get the bride coming down the aisle. They forgot didn't get the first kiss. I mean, they forget so many things, but they give the client thousands of images, you know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 images to go through, and they're just mostly snapshots. It's the same shots you could have gotten if you just asked your um, people at the wedding to take pictures and put them on a website. So it's no difference. And I've seen some very talented, very good photographers just leave the business because they cannot afford the overhead. They can't afford the building, the rent, the lease. They can't afford to hire personnel, because if you're going to have a photography business, it's not just you. It's more than one. And welcome, we got another viewer that's come in. Welcome to a Light Vision Art Q&A. We welcome you. If you have a comment or question, you can call in at 615-547-3355, or you can email me at livevisionart@gmail.com. You can see the comment or the thing at the bottom. Matter of fact, let me change the color of that. I don't like that black. How about that? That helps. But there again, the number is 615-547-3355. We're talking about the proliferation of photographers and how it has hurt the industry with having so many competing for such a small um, demographics. For example, it's not very often that someone has a portrait made every week. I mean, it's not like that you're going to the grocery store and buying your weekly groceries. So it's not like you're going to do this every week. So what you got to figure is, on average, most families will have a portrait or a family portrait maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, no more than that. If you have a newborn, of course, you're going to have a lot of people taking a lot of pictures. I think we should have Jeff jump in. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, big guy? One of our panelists has jumped in. I was trying to mute him. There he goes. I got him muted. That's the noise that you heard was my friend Jeff. He's on the road. Let's bring Jeff up. Let's see what's happening with Jeff. Hey, Jeff. Yeah, let me unmute you, big guy. Can you unmute yourself? See if you can unmute. Maybe I'll not be able to hear me. I muted you, so if you can get yourself unmuted, we'll get you going. But yeah, that's Jeff. Jeff, he comes in. He's on the road, apparently. He's one of my panelists that comes in. And Jeff's a very good photographer, by the way. He's a excellent still life, landscape photographer. Hey, Jeff. I don't hear you, big guy. I may have muted you. I'm sorry. I may have muted you again. See if you can find your mute button, Jeff. See if you can unmute yourself. There you go. Yeah, you on. What's happening, man? Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. Well, we're going, brother. let me show you in the broadcast. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you got, of course, we offer our condolences to the family, and I hope that you get there safe and get back safe. Well, we're
Yeah.
just talking about the proliferation of photographers in the industry and how it has affected the business model of photography. So that's what we sort of discussing this morning. Uh, you know, if you look around, you can almost pick up a stone and throw it and hit a photographer in any direction. But that's what we're discussing. So I see that Christopher is in the queue. He's jumped in, and we'll get his opinion on this. And do you have any thoughts about that, Jeff, in terms of what you see and how things have come along in your environment with this topic? I guess Jeff didn't hear me. He's breaking up on me. But in any case, can you hear me, Jeff?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, did you what I was asking, what do you think about the proliferation of photographers and how we have so many in the working out in the photography business? What do you think about that? How's it affected, the industry?
Uh, yeah, it's. I think it's put a lot of people out of business because you can, get your, if you're really willing to do it, and if you want your wedding taken by your brother-in-law, you can do that. But it's a gamble. You're
Right,
gonna. You may get good pictures. You may not get good pictures.
right. And it's the service. The service is what I see suffering. You just don't get service properly, is what I see. But I'm gonna get Christopher in. So I'm gonna put you on mute for a second. Let's see what Christopher got to say. What's up, big Christopher? How's it going, man? Let's bring you on.
Hey,
How's it going, brother?
it's 8:30 here.
That's right.
I'm
You're
in,
in California.
yeah.
Yeah. What's happening in Cali?
Oh, we just got my friend moved in. She left Wilmington Saturday afternoon, and she picked me up Sunday, and we got here a couple of days ago, and then unloaded her pod and got her moved into her apartment. So
Well,
yeah,
you go anywhere. Christopher will travel anywhere, folks. He may pop up in North Carolina. He may see him in Tennessee, and now he's in California at 8:30 in the morning. And I know this topic that I'm talking about today, you probably have some interest in it about how many photographers can you fit on the head of a pin. I mean, you look up and there's photographers everywhere now trying to be in the biz. What do you think about that? How has it affected the business model? How difficult has it made it for photography?
I can see where a lot of people perhaps lost jobs. Uh, but with the advent of digital technology, it really allowed for a lot of people that were very creative to come into the market and be able to capture moments. Um, and you didn't need a professional that knew how to develop their own film and then color balance in the dark room. So, but I mean, as far as like the stuff that I do, it doesn't affect me per se. I don't want to do a wedding. I'm glad that there are people out there that do a wedding. And when you look at some of the people that do weddings, they're very emotional people, and
Right,
they do a really, really good job. And these cameras that we have, considering photography is a scientific process, um, it's you can program the camera to do whatever it is that you need it to do.
right.
So
Well,
I'm glad that there are people out there that are doing those
yeah,
jobs, and that
yeah,
leave the jobs that I want to do open. Shooting whiskey bottles or whatever.
right. Well, of course, you specialize in a lot of commercial still life. And mainly the topic that I'm talking about are the people who are amateurs that have no experience, have no working knowledge of the field that they're going in, and they're just jumping in, and they're charging rates that are way out of kilter with the market. They're sort of pushing people's rates higher. Uh, and what I'm seeing are a lot of people who get in it, they're in it for a year and they get out because they find out there's not enough money to be made. Uh, Look, for example, I used to do 40, 50 weddings a year. And that was sometime doing two on a weekend. There's rare, you don't hear of that anymore. If a photographer does 6 weddings in a year on a regular basis, they're probably doing better than most. Mainly because, like what Christopher just said, your uncle or your niece or your cousin went to Walmart and bought a camera, and all of a sudden they're a wedding photographer. Now the customers, the people you meet, are on the higher end of that scale, so you probably don't run into a lot of those photographers.
I've got there's students at the school that I met, and they find their niche. They're doing weddings, and I see the horror stories. You know, there was a Craigslist post that said, you know, this photographer messed up my. It was a $500 shoot,
Right.
and they messed the whole thing up. And I'll pay somebody to edit the photos. And of course, a lot of us got in and said, I wouldn't touch that, you know, because then you're dealing with copyright. Uh, you know, unless you can get that photographer, that person to sign it over. But you know, I remember there were problems even in the '90s. I had heard stories that when the disposable cameras came out, and one bride decided, you know what, I'm just going to put them at the tables at the reception. I'm not going to have a professional photographer. And everybody took their own pictures, had their own angles, and then they went, developed all that film. And she goes, I got some of the best photos because you had 500 people with their own perspective of the. So it's to me, it's just how photography has evolved.
It's amazing. It's amazing that you brought that up about the disposable cameras, because I just had a customer come in that did the same thing at her wedding, and she put the cameras out on the table and nobody hardly used them. And when they did, they used them for themselves. I mean, it's like, taking a selfie or something. So she didn't hire a photographer, and she was dependent on the family, the people at the wedding, to take pictures. And the ones who did, they were like so far away, you couldn't see anything. So it's a potluck. It's sort of, you taking your chances, you taking that risk. And I'm thinking, if you're going to go buy all those disposable cameras, which wasn't cheap, by the way, at least hire a professional to sort of do the work that these other people just can't do. Jeff, you got anything to say about that, big guy?
And now, like I say, if you're going to do something like that, you're ready to gamble.
Destination is ahead on the right.
Well, you're almost there, Jeff. So
yeah, it sounds like it.
But so like you're saying, it's a gamble, and it's a gamble that people are willing to take. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's taking the space or the job or people who have been working with this for
you got to look at it another way, though. I mean, people don't think that way anymore, but it should be your only time you ever do that, and you would want the best
destination on the right. Route guidance
best pictures that you can of your one-time event.
Right. Yeah, that's the way I see it too, Jeff. But I can understand from Chris's perspective, there are plenty of really good photographers out there that just like doing the craft. They just love, photography. Many of them don't even look at it as a business. They don't see it as, okay, this is my job. And what I normally ask people, what do you do for a living? I hear, well, I'm a, carpenter, or, I'm this or I'm that. And they just look at photography as something they like to do on the weekend. And some of them are pretty good at it, no doubt about that. Go ahead and follow up, Chris.
I think digital just changed the whole paradigm of um, how we do, because there was like a flavor around the 90s of how you did studio photography and how you shot products and whatnot. And then once people that didn't have the education to do film and have to deal with all that, they could just go and shoot. It just took it to a whole other level. The way that we shoot everything.
Right.
So to me, it's just, I've studied the history of photography going back to the 1700s, where they were making images, but they didn't know how to fix them. So they're looking at their images in a dark room until they finally go black. Louis Daguerre, Nice Bohr Nips, Frederick Archer, and how they brought the wet plate collodion process in 1851. And then I see a lot of photographers actually going back to say that particular style.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's something digital, it's just too perfect, and people want character to their images. So to me, it's the Brownie camera all over again, of being able to do just any amateur can just shoot.
Right.
I don't know. For me, I'm a fan. Just simply because
you're purist. You are a purist. You're someone that, for me, you like me in a lot of ways, because you like the study of the art. You like the study of the craft. You like to know the history of the craft. You like to get the most out of the craft that you can. And I've seen your work. I know your work stands up for itself. And it's hard. You cannot argue perfection in those areas. But where my concern is that I see a lot of the opportunities for the business part of photography is being sacrificed. So a lot of your professionals are leaving that industry, of course, going into other things. Some of them have left and went into video. Matter of fact, I know a lot of photographers who left the still world and went into the video world.
My friend did that. He does a lot of video stuff.
Yeah. And that's a new fertile area. That's an area they can still make a living and do that very well, and still use their skills that they learned as a photographer. It's not going to be long, though, before that gets overtaken because of the ease of use of all the apps. You have these new apps, these new devices, the iPhones and Androids and Samsung device. All these devices are getting better and better, and the software is getting easier to use. Years ago, if you wanted to be a videographer, you had to go to school and learn an Avid, or learn how to use Final Cut for Apple, or use, if you were working with Adobe Premiere, you had to go to a classroom and learn how to use it. It was that huge. But today, you don't have to do that any longer. Am I correct?
Today is what I hear from people like making YouTube videos, that some of the software is just very simple.
Yeah.
I mean, again, scientific process. So you can train a camera to do the scientific side of it.
Right.
And the rest of it is just, how do you view the world, and you're able to put your spin or your flair on it. But I mean, when people just when you hear the complaint about this, it usually always inevitably goes back to, say, weddings. It doesn't. There's a whole slew of other stuff out there. I mean, the internet's a thing, and somebody's taking those pictures when I surf Amazon for something.
Right.
So I mean, they could get into that. There's
commercial.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that can be done as far as photography goes.
Right.
That wedding is just. And that gets into a whole other thing about how that we've kind of sold that as
the premiere,
where you have to get the expensive ring, and then they marketed the ring. Diamonds really aren't as rare as they try to make them out, and just to get down that whole thing. So it's Even the cake. I mean, that was only really wealthy people because sugar was very expensive. Now it's like everybody has a cake because sugar's everywhere. So
Yeah.
wedding is a whole other niche. I just don't want to I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole.
You make a great point. So let's talk about journalism. What about journalism? How that has changed because of the new technology. Newspapers no longer hire a full-time photography staff, whereas they would have maybe 10 or 12 professionals that work daily. They worked along with the writers. They went out on assignment, but you don't need that anymore. So they let those photographers, if they didn't know how to write, they were out of a job. So they left that industry and got into blogging. They learned how to do blogs. They learned how to do, things on the internet to shop around their wares. So now they will sell their work to more than one outlet. They may have it out there for, stock photography. They may have it out there for, news articles, places all over the internet. As you just said, you can Google it and find it on the internet. You can almost Google anything and find an image. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And I mean, especially with people having, a camera on them at all times, oh, look, that building's on fire, snap, and then send it to the news. You don't need, why am I paying this guy to go? And then, no. Yeah. So, and then people want their name out there. So they're going to send it out. They're going to give the news, the thing for free. Just put my name on there. And I mean, cause I'm guilty of that.
Right.
Just so that when people Google me, I've got a whole portfolio on Google.
Right.
But yeah.
But no, how do you make an income? How do you generate any type of income with that at your threshold as the starting point?
Yeah, you have to find what, I mean, if we go to capitalism, you have to find what it is that people are willing to pay. I mean, when photography came around, the phrase, paintings are dead. Well, people still paint today, so it's not like it's entirely dead, but it's just one of those things that you have to find your niche. There's been lots of stuff that we've, I mean, I look at it like this. Everybody's got a stove in their kitchen, but we still go out to eat. Right. So you just have to figure out what it is that a customer is willing to pay for and what they're willing. Like if you're doing grilled cheese, that's fine. But if you want something a little bit more, fancy, and that's what you'll have to step it up. As far as somebody that is doing photography, they're going to have to find their niche that is going to sell. Like one of my friends, he still shoots film. Everything he's got he got an old film scanner, something like you have in your place, and he develops all of his film and scans it, and that's his business model. And people pay out the nose for it.
Right, right, because of that look, because of the look. You're going to get a different look when you take film and scan it and convert it to digital. You got a unique look. It's not the same as you taking your 20 megapixel camera and shooting that same image. So yes, you do have I can see how that model will work. And if you market it correctly, you can definitely see how that would appeal to a certain client. As you just stated, finding that niche or finding that market or creating a new market. If you can create a market, that's another thing that could benefit you. It takes a little thought, a little more effort. You got to find a way to make yourself unique, not just in the aspects of composition and all those things, but unique as a photographer. Personality used to be the thing. If you were a photographer, a photographer's personality went a long way towards how the public perceived their work. We don't have that any longer. You don't really have a face to a photographer anymore. You just have an image. Would you not say that that's something that's different than, say, what you're saying in the 90s or even in the 1800s, turn of the century, some of the great photographers that you mentioned and talk about, they had personality, they had character, they had the things that you recognize them as. You don't have that much anymore today. That's my opinion.
I don't really know so much. I mean, because I've studied what made the people that I studied essentially great. Ansel Adams, what made him great, and it's because he was shooting essentially everything at f/64, and everything was in sharp focus, coming out of an era where people had larger apertures and much less depth of field.
Right.
So when I go back and you figure out what each person contributed to photography, I don't necessarily know if I studied, I guess, their personality per se. One of my friends, he does weddings, and I tell people, you're buying the personality, you're getting the photos for free. I mean, because he's a character. So I can see it today, as far as, at least whereas me, I was born without a personality. So you're gonna have to, like, if you're wanting something, you're gonna want like a good, decent image. That's what I'm providing. I am not providing my personality.
Well, actually, you are. But it's the anti-personality. You do have plenty of personality, because I've seen your work. I've seen you as an artist, and I really admire what you do. And by all means, go and visit Christopher's website. You can go over to his website. I'm going to post it right quick, Christopher, so people can see your website. Go over to Christopher Hamrick's website, and you can get plenty of personality. Trust me. There'll be an abundance of personality over there, because this guy is prolific in infrared and commercial and landscapes and all the studio. So go to Christopher's website and check him out. But in any case, Christopher, but as you just said about personality, though, that goes along with the package for me as an artist. When I do a shoot, or when I do or whatever I'm doing, whether it's commercial, weddings, portraits, headshots, whatever, people like to feel comfortable. They like to feel like that you are in control. They like to feel like they're in good hands. They don't like to feel like that you don't know what you're doing. I'd be like going to a doctor or somewhere, and you feel like, hey man, do you really know what you're doing? And I've been around a lot of photographers that I just sense they really don't know what it is they're doing. They're just sort of winging it. And that's okay on your own dime, if that's what you want to do. But if somebody's paying you and you've been hired to do that, I think that you owe them at least some professionalism and some experience to back that up. I know you feel a little bit different about that.
No, that's also true. I've shot people for magazines, like one of the artists in Nashville. We were to meet at some gallery out in, I don't remember. But anyway, so I'm shooting this person, and she told me, she goes, I feel really comfortable. A lot of people get really apprehensive about photography, being photographed or something like that. And so she just did these headshots for her, this article that was being printed. And I, over and over again, I've had people say, you make me feel comfortable, because I talk to them, I tell them what I'm doing, why I'm doing it this way. Because my instinct is also to teach, but I guess, there's a lot of people that just don't want to be photographed. They don't like the way that they look.
Right.
And it kind of goes back to the amateur side of it, where somebody doesn't understand lighting. I mean, even now when I get on some of these things, like I'm trying to put my face in such a way that it's self-dramatic.
Yeah, I could tell that. And, everybody sort of don't pick up on those things. But as a photographer, you're constantly looking for shadows and angles and composition and background and all those things that go into making that image work for you. But do you not agree that some of that happens over time because you gain the experience? You've worked in the industry long enough. You've had enough opportunity to deal with different people and different clients, and it's not something you just picked up on one weekend and all of a sudden you're into that field. And I agree that there are some really, really, really good photographers out there. I wonder how good they would be without Photoshop or without some other tool to spice up or fix up their work. Because I see so many shots that just poorly exposed. That's just me. That's the industry I'm in. When I look at something under or over or normal or whatever, I look at the exposures too. I just think that we're headed down a rabbit hole that is going to sort of gut the industry as we see it today. It may seem like that it's a wonderful thing, but over time you're going to see less and less individuals that want to do this as a way of life, whether that's in the lab industry, whether it's in the personnel industry. Now, if you go work for some of the bigger outfits, they will teach you how they want you to shoot. If you go work for, some of the huge commercial companies, especially in the school industry, they're going to tell you exactly how they want you to shoot that image, and you do not vary from that. You don't use your own creativity, and that's just another animal altogether. Are you familiar with that, Chris? Have you worked for, say, a commercial outfit where you sort of are the worker bee and somebody else sort of tells you how they want it done and that's it? Or
I've had people request certain things, but I've never. There's a photographer across the street from me down in Murfreesboro named Loveless, and apparently he hires you, because I've had friends that worked for him, not for very long, because he was like, this is exactly how I want it done.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't do it because they couldn't use their own creativity.
Right.
I might not have a problem with it. I mean, if somebody says this is exactly how I want it to look, then I can do it that way. I have the difficulty that I run into is when I do a job, and I did this studio. It was an audio studio, and the guy was like, I want the walls blue, and I want, and so I give him the first picture, and the walls are actually gray, and he was like, they're not. Where's the blue? And I told him, I said, you got tungsten lighting in here hitting these walls. I said, the walls are gray, they're not blue. You think they're blue. So we had to go back and forth, and he's like, this image is too bright, this image is too dark, and that goes back to calibration. I'm like, So I fought people on that front before, but as far as the creativity goes, the only thing I've ever come across is like people saying, I don't really like this. Well, what don't you like about it? I don't know. So it's like until they really know what they want, I can't help you. You're gonna have to hire somebody else because I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I've done jobs, many jobs over the years. Been in this thing since '86. I've seen so many things. I mean, if I started even listing some of them, I have forgotten more than I've shot today in terms of what I've done. But it always comes down to being able to balance your artistic ideas with the client's desire of what they're wanting. And that's like building a house or like, remodeling a car. If you do that for a living, you got to balance your creative prowess with what a client wants to see. And that becomes very difficult. That's where the rubber meets the road, sort of speaking. I'll give you the last thoughts on this, Chris. Of course, we can go back and forth on the 10,000 photographers on the head of a pin concept. There's more photographers than there are things to shoot in some cases. But as for me, as far as a working photographer, that is.
No, it's certainly changed. We're at a paradigm shift. That's really all there is to it. There's going to be growing pains associated with it. So I know that there are a lot of people that are kind of hurt because even my education, I was taught film first and then digital, and then nowadays, I mean, even in what you do, a lot of images don't even go to print anymore. So, and it's just like you snap it, it goes online, done. So there's feel when it comes to the prints. Like when I have a print and people are able to see it, it's like, wow, look at this. So there's the more once we settle on some technology, I think we'll get to a point where people are going to expect either really high quality, if they're going to be shooting all these really these cameras, 36, 75 megapixel cameras, they're going to be able to tell a difference because they're going to get tired of crap.
Yeah,
We'll
you're
see
right.
where it settles.
Yeah, you're seeing where the threshold happens, and then you're always going to have people who are going to demand higher quality and willing to pay for it. There's no doubt about that. And of course, most of my customers are still, they still demand printing quality. They still demand to know what's happening. Or we help them with their cameras or their phones or whatever they have. And we sort of work with them on that level. And we still do a lot of work with film. It's not processing the film. It's just basically scanning it, printing from it. So people still have their film. They just don't know what else to do with it now. They didn't wake up one day and just throw all their film away. And they surely didn't throw all their old negatives away when they had them developed years ago. So now they're wanting that stuff put on CDs and DVDs. So it's always that business model. I'm just concerned about the new photographers that are getting educated, that are wanting to go in the field, that are wanting to make a living. They're going to find it more difficult than, say, your generation and my generation did. And you've done a lot of great things. I'll let you have the last word, and we'll wrap this thing up.
Oh, I don't even know if I have a word.
I tell you what, hey, enjoy California. When you headed back to Tennessee?
My flight is the 4th of October.
Okay, well, be careful. Get back and let us know when you make it back to the great state of Tennessee. And thanks for coming on. And of course, you always add some great things to the show, and we really appreciate it. Of course, that was Christopher E. Hamrick. You can find his work on the internet. His website is available. You can go to ChristopherEHamrick.com. You can see it there and go and check out some of his work. And Christopher is a very knowledgeable person. And of course, like all things, all good things, eventually they all come to an end, no matter what it is. And today's show is no different. I'm Alfonso Ashworth. I am the host of Live Vision Art Q&A. As you can see, we talk about serious topics concerning photography. We have guests that come on the show. We have a panel of photographers. Christopher's one, Claudia Richardson, she's another. And of course, you heard a little bit from Jeff Coleman today. He's out on the road. We want everyone to be safe. And of course, by all means, enjoy whatever you do. Whether you're a photographer, a singer, a musician, or you just someone who just enjoys other people doing what they do. You may be a great fan of a photographer or a musician, but whatever that is, be the best you can be. Of course, I want to say God bless you, God bless America, and of course, peace.